Welcome back to the channel. In this video, what we're going to be doing is installing an aftermarket 4x4 exhaust. It's essentially a remanufacture or replication of the original 4x4 that this 73 Z1 900 would have come with off the showroom floor, out of the factory. So here is the big box of that particular item. We're going to get that unboxed off camera and go ahead and we'll take off this whole Kirker. And I'm not going to really show this as far as taking it off, but I will just tell you a couple things that you need to be really careful of. Any exhaust bolts or studs or nuts, whatever the case may be, you got to be really careful when you break these loose. I've already checked all 8 of them and they're loose and they're coming out. Really, to make this thing look pristine, we'd replace the studs, but sometimes getting these studs out is very risky. And so if you break one off or you strip the threads and you have to do a thread repair, it can be a real nightmare. So the risks very often outweigh the benefits of doing that. So what we'll probably do is just clean the ends of them best we can. We're going to be putting new nuts on, new lock washers, and new flanges. I have new flange kit for this as well. Also, the spacers that are inside here, you'll see them later. They look like this. They go inside there and push between the flange or this flange and the little flange that's on the end of the pipe, and of course that pushes against the exhaust gasket and that against the cylinder head exhaust port. But we're going to put all new ones of these guys in, and so it'll look nice, but except for the very tips of the studs, unfortunately. But like I said, risk-benefit ratio is often weighing toward the risk side as opposed to benefit trying to get these guys out. If the exhaust you're removing is split like this one, where you have a header and a slip-on, the muffler side, just take that off first. But some of them are all one piece, you don't get the option to do that. They're a lot easier to handle if you just take this off first. The muffler and the header, the entire pipe, in other words, is off now. It's usually pretty easy in the long run, but make sure that all the old exhaust gaskets are out of it, because we're going to be putting new ones in. I always recommend putting new exhaust gaskets in when you're doing any type of exhaust system work. When you take them off, they never want to go back on exactly the same way, and you end up getting leaks. These are crush gaskets anyway, so once they're crushed, they're supposed to stay in that position, and you start moving them around, and like I said, you're going to get leaks. So at this time, usually what I do is I take and I make sure that all of the studs are tight. And like I said, that's a matter of risks versus benefit, but I wiggle them to make sure none are loose, twist them, because you don't want to be torquing something up that looks like it's in, but it really isn't. I can get in here and do this one. I'll do the other side. I also like to look inside the exhaust ports and see what those valves look like as far as any indications of the valve stem seals leaking. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I find anything, I'll report it to you, but if not, we'll just move on. That's number 3 exhaust. Doesn't look too terribly healthy. Possibly, I would say that's most likely oil from oil, maybe running a little on the rich side. So yeah. Number 4 looks like it's got some evidence of some leakage on the valve stem seal. So you can see that. I mean, it's not 100% definitive because sometimes there can be some discoloring like that, but based on what number 3 looks like, I'd say yeah. With the exhaust off, it's really a good time to address any nicks in here. These were pre-existing, as far as you know, and so, no, they were. And so we're gonna go ahead and clean these up, and I'll paint these with some PJ1 gloss engine paint, because that stuff's 500-degree paint, and it shouldn't be any problem in this location, considering it's not even attached to the engine, but it is very close to a heat source. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera. I have to wait on some items to come in to finish this job anyway. So we might as well use our time wisely and get this cleaned up. There's a couple on the other side as well, and it'll look a lot better. While we got paint curing, I figure I'd go over the kit that you can get to install the 4x4 exhausts. This is a kit from Z1 Parts. I believe you can get it elsewhere, like Johnny's Vintage and maybe Z1 Enterprises. So this kit comes with everything you see here. It has the proper exhaust flange with the M6 holes. There are 2 versions of this kit. This is for the early Z1, which has M6 studs as opposed to the KZ900 and 1000. Well, the 1000's got different exhaust anyway, but the KZ900 has M8, so there'll be bigger holes in these. Now I'm going to go into more detail on the geometry of these here in a minute. Geometry is probably too fancy of a word for it. They're just shaped a little differently per side for some clearance, which again I'll show you here in a bit. Also comes with rubber biscuits, which goes in the, these are dampers for where the actual muffler gets held in the back. I'll show you that here in a second. And some more rubber biscuits. Rubber biscuit! That is dampers for bump stops. One of these would be for the center stand. The other one's for the side stand. I think this is side stand. This is center stand. They go in spots on the muffler on that side. All right, the lower muffler. So anyway, you got the big long bolts that go through these bushings, these dampers, for where it holds, and that spot I'll show you here in a second. And of course the metal pieces that are the spacers, I guess they're called, that have the flanges on them, like the one I showed you before. So again, this kit's available. I bought it, numerous places. I bought this one, Z1 Parts, but I know Johnny's Vintage has it because they sell the exhaust systems as well. But I'm not 100% sure about Z1 Enterprises. So do your research, make sure you get the right one, and have this on hand. I'd get it ahead of time because it doesn't come with the pipes. You got to buy it separately. This is the left attachment point, I should say, where the mufflers go. And you can see that I've already taken the rubber biscuits out. Now you can leave these things in if they're there, but these are pretty chewy, so I always get the new sets anyway. And yeah, that's a lot. It'll be a lot better that way. This bracket here is for the Kirker, so I'm going to off camera undo this, take that bracket off. We'll put the passenger foot peg back in on this side, but we don't need that bracket. You can go in there, live with your little friends. These rubber biscuits here, they go on each side, one on each side, on both sides of the bike. For the long bolt that goes through, it's a rubber damper. They can be a little stiff to put in. So what I recommend is a product such as, what the hell's that doing out here? Hey, don't judge. This product rather, some sort of silicone lube, brake lube is fine. Add some goo to it and we'll shove them in. It's pretty simple process here. I'll put a little bit on the rubber biscuit and put it in here as well. Strangely satisfying.
Oh, yes!
Shove them in. Do the rest of them off camera, and those are going to be ready to accept the flanges on the mufflers and that long bolt that goes through for each. Now I'm just going to go ahead and clean all this crap up on both sides of the bike because we're going to need some space to lay the pipes out in a safe manner on some cardboard, so we'll go ahead and get that done next. Alright, so your next step is to lay stuff out. Yeah, sorry about that, and of course the dog starts barking right when I want to record. Tell you what we need to do is the next step. Now the first thing, or the next step, is to lay everything out. You want everything organized. This is number 3 pipe, and the one over there is number 2 pipe. The reason why is you need to do the inside pipes first. Not only because it's an access issue, but because number 2 and number 3 are the lower pipes, and number 1 and 4 are the upper pipe. In other words, they go atop 2 and 3. So I'll show you what I mean, how you can see that, because there is a fitting or a bung on top of number 3 and number 2 where number 1 and number 4 will sit down on top of, and this little connector goes between them. It looks like just a regular, it's actually very cheaply made connector with a piece of radiator hose or something in there. I can tell you for sure that the screw goes toward the back, because I did it on the last ones, and plus you can see it on, if you close up on some of the pictures on Z1.net, Z1parts.net website, that it goes to the back. So straighten these things out by hand with a pair of pliers. Make sure they're round as possible because they don't want to fit unless you do. So we're just going to have that laid out there. We're going to put that there. We got a bolt and nut on this side, on that side as well. We got 4 of the spacers here, 4 of the spacers there, and then 2 and 2 of the flanges that go out here. Now I'll tell you something about these flanges right now because we're getting to the point where we're about to start fitting. I mentioned before about little shape geometry differences between them. I got to make sure these are actually set up correctly. You see how what do you want to call them, the fins? I guess they'd be fins of this are cut away on one part of it, and that's the part that goes inside toward the frame. So as you can see here, if we try to put it on this way with the fins sticking out, it won't go. It won't reach the hole. All right, I don't know if I can actually get in there to show you that, but it won't line up to the hole. So we definitely. So we definitely want to have it like this with these kind of cast lower fins, these fins that don't protrude as much, toward the frame on each side. It's only going to be on, well, it's going to be on all 4 of them, whatever is toward the frame. You can see right there the space is very limited, so you have to have those cut away. It won't go the other way. So if you try to go the other way, these guys here, being too pronounced, will not let you do it. So you can see that this is, it won't line up to the 2 holes because it hits the frame. A couple other quick things, and one in particular. This is the hole that the bolt goes through, that goes in here. Now you'll notice that this is really big.
Huge, enormous.
I like them when they're really big.
And I think it's better when they're enormous.
And you'd say to yourself, well, doesn't it take a grommet or something like that? Well, the answer is no. It just doesn't. This back side will butt against the front side of the next pair that goes in, which will be upside down. The tab will be facing down for number 1 and 4. You'll see when we get to those two. And it's just this way. It allows for a certain amount of movement, you know, orientation and lining stuff up, probably because of manufacturing variances. But this will go through and is plenty big enough to capture the outside of that to pull it in. All right, so I just wanted to show you, when you take it out of the box and you see this kind of oval hole, and then you look at a bolt and go, hey, wait a minute, that's the way it's supposed to be. Gaskets came in. These are the only ones I could get reasonably quick. I did order a couple of the copper ones, but they're the same dimension according to the website as those. I kind of like these anyway. I think they're a little thicker. At least they're a little bit more surface area this way. And when you have the surface area this way, they crush a little harder. And they don't necessarily draw all the way up on the stud, and then your flange is bottoming out on the parts of the head where the studs go into. And if that happens, or even if it doesn't, I'll show you what I mean. But so how we hold these in, there's a couple ways you can do it. Some guys use Honda Bond, other guys use whatever. I just slather them up with some blue grease. And you don't need a lot, but you want to hold it up into place. And you might think that this grease will start smoking, burning off like really crazy. Well, it doesn't. And you won't even notice any smoke. I've never noticed any smoke from doing this. I put a lot of these in over the years, as far as just exhaust gaskets. Just glue them up, stick it in, come back, and show you how to get the pipes in. I got the back side of this pipe up on some of the packing material, which puts this hole pretty much level with where it's got to go. You want to get it up as close, well, get it up would be nice.
Thanks, but no thanks.
But get it up as close as possible to that, because it'll make the job a little easier. I'll change the camera around now and shoot you that way so you kind of see what I'm fiddling with. One other quick thing I forgot to mention before is these bags that the pipes come in, they come in padding on the back and then bags in the front. The bags in the front up by the head of it, the header side, are labeled as to number, but you can't screw these up, because as long as you remember that these with the little bung thing that I showed you before, these guys here go down, the lower ones, one's got to be number 3 and one's got to be number 2, and obviously they can't go the other way because they'd be facing the wrong way. So, you know, they would be hitting inboard because of this curve. So you can't screw them up if you take the bags off prematurely. I hate it when it's premature.
That's what she said.
Now don't worry about putting a washer on right now. Just get yourself a nut.
Rub one out.
It's too difficult to do this. It's not too difficult, but it's difficult enough to do this like this. You can always take them off one at a time when you get done. Put a washer on, put it back, then do the other one. It's just a pain in the ass to try to navigate it. I think the original, well, I don't know about these, but the original ones on the M8s, like on the KZ900 and 1000, they have the lock washers built into them, but you can't get those anymore. I've never been able to find them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a flange. We're going to put the flange on. Just let it sit there. Now let's make sure we got the right flange. Again, we have to have that one that goes on the inside here. And you know what? I got a better idea. I'm going to stick you on the other side and look up at it, and you can see what I'm fiddling with, hopefully, past that frame rail. So just kind of get it up into line, and you can't put it in the hole and swing it back up. It has to go forward and then back in like this. And this is where it gets tricky. We got to carefully get these guys in place. I kind of hold them, put them in right this time. I gotta kind of hold them. They go that way with the flange out back. That goes in that little counter bore on the big finned flange. And you gotta kind of work it up in here. That's why you elevate the back. And again, you can probably do this with some tape or something, but I just don't usually. And then you just kind of push it in, try to hold it. Sometimes it'll hold like that. And you wiggle it a little bit. You dance it a little bit, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. You gotta wiggle it a little bit. I gotta push this in closer to the end point where it actually lives. There we go. Now you see you got some threads sticking out, and we're not all the way up yet, but that's okay. We just want to get some threads on one of them and then the other, and we're not going to tighten these up yet anyway. We're going to do them all, start to get the back end lined up first, then we're going to tighten them up. There we go. Now see, you want to make sure that these spacers in there are not jammed up, because they'll start to come out and maybe they'll be on the edge of the flange here, you know, this guy with the fins. So you just reach in there and just kind of touch them and you'll feel them drop in if they are hung up. And all I'm doing is bringing these up a little bit. That's really all you got to do, and it's kind of like a, you get better when you do them with experience. The more you do, the more you can kind of do your hand thing and hold the pieces in. You don't have to tape nothing. I just don't like doing that. You can see that tape in there, and it's not all going to burn off. You're going to see remnants of it. I just think it looks crappy, so I do it this way. Okay, here's the back, and we're still up on the packing material, but you can see we're pretty lined up here. So typically what I would do is I would just put a bolt in temporarily, and I go to the other side and I do number 2. But it's kind of counterproductive right now. I'm going to show you a couple things about number 2, but let me go ahead and do number 4. That way you can see how they stack. And I'll show you a couple things about number 2, and then really you don't need to see any more anyway. It's all the same. If you're working by yourself, just take a towel and lay it on top of the other one, because we're going to go right on top of this with the number 4 pipe rather. If you had a second person, which would be optimal, they can kind of hold it out of the way, and therefore you don't have that issue generally, unless they're incompetent like me. But in this case, I'm just going to put a towel there because I need that lined up where it's supposed to be, essentially, to get this to line up where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and do that, just like we did before. This is really a lot easier with 2 people, I'm certain, but unfortunately it's only me, so. I have number 4 moved over to the side. You can see that fitting that goes on the lower bung. One goes into the other. The fitting on this number 4 pipe is actually a little smaller than that one, and that just kind of clamps 2 together. These are not exactly lining up as even as I would like. The number 4 pipe, I believe, wants to go backwards a little bit of that one. You can kind of see, well, I'll show you right now. It's a little bit back. We need to manipulate this a little bit, or something up front. Well, when the whole thing comes up, it'll be a little bit more even. I'm gonna have to look into this. I'm not really sure why that's not lining up. They lined up a lot better on the KZ900. I just had to loosen up the front a little bit more and manipulate these. These are not precise, okay? They're not as precise as you would hope them to be. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. So we're gonna try to get this through here. Okay, I'm going to do the left side now. That'll be 1 and 2 off camera. The only thing I'm going to show you over here, I don't usually put this on a lift on a center stand, although I have in this particular bike, but not now. I just have the center stand tied down to the front of the lift because you need to slip this pipe in here and just kind of flip the side stand back and forth as you need down out of your way, because this thing will contact that rubber biscuit on the bottom of number 4, I guess it is. Yeah, that has those parts welded into it for those. And the last time I put one in, it was very difficult to get the side stand one, and I hope this one's better. It's like the hole is too small for it. But Anyway, I'm just going to get these done. That's the only thing I wanted to show you on that. All right, so there we are. I wanted to bring a couple things up to your attention. We have the paint done. I painted this, as I said earlier. This came out real nice. This is PJ1 gloss paint. It's excellent paint. I really like using it. So that's taken care of. The other thing is those rubber dampers that you put in on the left side here. I said before that they both go in one pipe. That's incorrect. Side stand goes in number 1, center stand goes in number 2. I highly recommend that you put these in when they're off the bike because they are very, very difficult to get in. The holes are much too small for the end that pops in to those holes. So instead of modifying the pipes, you have to do a little finessing, if you will, on the rubber, at least on this one. But the main damper underneath here, which is for the center stand, I got it in, but it was very difficult to get in. So I just wanted to bring up those two things to you. The third thing I want to bring up is I went around and I've got the lock washers in, all these tightened up, and so that's all set. It's a lot easier to do it this way. Just take one off and then just put the lock washer and the nut back on, then do the other one. What's handy is a nut driver like this. Put a nut inside of it so it doesn't go that deep, and then the nut that you're trying to screw on is toward the end of this tool, and it makes it much easier to work with. This side went in pretty quick as far as alignment. I don't know why the other one was so difficult, but they require a little massaging, you know, pushing around a little bit. They're just not OEM. They're not OEM. They're aftermarket. I understand they're made in Japan, if I'm not mistaken that. So, but still, they're not OEM, and they require a little bit of friendly persuasion. I guess that'd be the way to put it. But they look good, and I think we're going to be fine with this. And you can see that the side stand does hit, didn't hit by much, but the one on the KZ900 had actually modified the side stand by putting a fastener, which was a acorn nut sticking out the back on a stud, so it would actually contact us. Otherwise, it was smacking the pipe itself. So this one, I don't have to do that modification on, and everything else is great. So the next step is clean up, and then we can do a test fire. But unfortunately, that won't be in this video. We're out of time, and this video was pretty much about installing the exhaust. Video number 2 on this bike, which will be coming out, I don't know when, soon I guess, will show you how it sounds running, and hopefully tuned a little better than it is now with the 4x4 exhaust on it. Showed you a variety of idiosyncrasies and things you maybe have to do a little persuasion on to get it to fit right, but it'll be a hell of a lot easier with 2 people versus 1, but you can do it. So that's it. Hope you got something out of it. Like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. As always, thanks for watching. Catch you on next video.